The quiet power within. 7 messages about the value of silence. A pause that can change everything. Have you ever noticed that the moments that touch us most deeply are often the quiet ones? A gentle glance across the dinner table. The warmth of a hand held in silence. The hush before a grandchild says, "I love you." As we grow older, something inside us begins to shift. We no longer crave loud applause or hurried answers. We begin to appreciate the stillness. We realize that in silence, we are not empty. We are full of memories, of wisdom, of meaning. Today, I invite you on a journey. Not to speak more, but to listen more. Not to be louder, but to be more present. Because silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of depth. Let us explore together 7 powerful messages that show why silence is not just golden, it is essential for a meaningful life after 50. 1. Silence is not weakness, it's inner strength. For most of our lives, we are taught that strong people speak up. That confidence means saying what we think, loud and clear. But as the years pass, a quieter truth reveals itself. Real strength often speaks in whispers. Or not at all. Silence is not surrender. It is not hiding or giving up. In fact, choosing silence takes far more courage than speaking. It is the space where reflection begins, where wisdom grows, and where we allow others to truly be seen. In ancient Greece, the great philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." Think about that. Nature itself seems to encourage silence. Many of the most respected people in the world, leaders, healers, elders, do not rush to speak. They wait. They watch. They weigh their words. And when they finally speak, their words carry more weight, because they were born out of stillness. Silence gives us time to understand our own thoughts before we give them to others. It teaches us that not every opinion needs to be shared, not every truth needs to be shouted, and not every moment needs to be filled with words. And in that restraint, we discover a deeper kind of power. The power of discernment. The power to protect, to heal, to build trust without raising our voice. 2. Listening is the doorway to connection. In the early years of our lives, we want to be heard. We want to be noticed. But as we mature, something beautiful happens. We begin to want to hear others. True listening is not simply staying quiet while someone else speaks. It is a form of love. A way of saying, "I see you. You matter." Have you ever spoken to someone who truly listened, not just to your words, but to your heart? Their silence felt like a hug. Their presence gave you space to breathe. That is the gift we can offer others, especially as elders. Silence allows us to become better listeners. And better listening creates deeper connection. Too often, we interrupt others not because we disagree, but because we are afraid of not being heard. Yet when we listen fully, we often discover that the other person wants the same thing we do, to be understood. Listening in silence teaches patience, humility, and grace. It builds bridges between generations, between cultures, and even between hearts that have grown distant. So the next time someone opens up to you, your child, your spouse, a neighbor, don't rush to answer. Let your silence be the space where their words can land safely. Because in the end, people may forget what you said, but they will never forget how fully you listened. 3. Speak only when your words are more valuable than silence. There is a quote that has guided my life as a counselor and speaker: before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Words are powerful. They can heal or they can wound. They can inspire or they can divide. And once spoken, they can never be taken back. That is why silence is often the safer, wiser path. When emotions are high during conflict, misunderstanding, or anger, it's tempting to speak quickly. But what we say in haste often leads to regret. Older adults often tell me their biggest regrets are not the times they stayed silent, but the times they spoke when they should have waited. In silence, we gain perspective. We allow our emotions to settle. We create room for wisdom to enter. Think of your words as seeds. Will they grow into kindness or bitterness? Will they blossom into understanding or misunderstanding? When you do speak, speak with intention. Speak from a place of calm. Speak only when your words offer more peace than your silence. That is not weakness. That is mastery. You do not need to speak often to be respected. You need only speak with truth and compassion. And when you do, people will listen. 4. Know when silence is the best response. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than any words ever could. When a loved one is grieving. When tempers flare. When the truth is still unfolding and too fragile to hold in your hands. In those moments, silence is not absence. It is presence in its purest form. One of the greatest acts of wisdom is knowing when not to speak. When to offer comfort not with advice but with your nearness. When to protect a relationship by pausing instead of pushing. When to choose peace over pride. Albert Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." But even deeper than understanding is discernment, knowing when even the simplest explanation isn't needed at all. Silence in difficult times is not avoidance. It is restraint. It is the space we create for others to process, for wounds to begin healing, for tension to dissolve. And sometimes, silence is the strongest response to disrespect. Not because we are weak, but because we refuse to be pulled into chaos. Because we choose dignity over noise. Think of silence as the velvet lining of your words. Without it, your speech becomes harsh, even if your intention is kind. Hold your silence like a sacred gift. Offer it when words might wound. Share it when others need space. And carry it as a shield when the world becomes too loud. 5. Emotional control starts with quiet wisdom. As we age, our emotional world becomes more complex. We've loved and lost, tried and failed, grown and grieved. The things that used to make us angry now seem trivial. And yet, there are still days when frustration creeps in, when bitterness knocks, when resentment whispers. It is during these times that silence becomes our greatest ally. Silence helps us step back from emotional cliffs. It gives us space to ask, is this feeling permanent? Or just passing through? When we speak out of anger, we often leave behind a trail of regret. But when we pause, when we wait, when we allow the emotion to move through us without acting on it, we reclaim our power. There's a quiet wisdom in knowing that not every battle is ours to fight. That sometimes, peace is worth more than being right. And as we practice this stillness, we model emotional maturity for those around us, our children, our friends, even strangers. Imagine a world where more people paused before speaking in anger. Where silence replaced shouting. Where compassion replaced competition. That world begins with us. The next time anger rises, try this: breathe. Count to 10. Leave the room if you must. Let the silence hold your heat until it cools. Then speak, if needed, with calm clarity. You will not only feel better, you will lead by example. 6. Silence is compassion in action. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from distance but from deep empathy. The silence that says, "I'm here with you, even if I don't know what to say." We've all experienced moments of pain when words felt hollow. Moments of joy when words felt too small. In those sacred times, silence is the most honest gift we can offer. Silence can say, "I'm not trying to fix you. I'm simply here." It allows others to be seen without being judged. It offers permission to feel, to cry, to process, to simply be. In caregiving, this kind of silence is golden. Whether you're comforting a spouse facing illness or a friend in emotional distress, your quiet presence often brings more peace than any well-meant advice. It's a lesson many hospice workers know well. Sometimes, the greatest healing happens not through treatment, but through tender silence. Through sitting with someone, holding their hand, and letting them know they are not alone. Compassion does not always need a voice. Sometimes it needs only your presence. Your stillness. Your heart wide open and your mouth gently closed. So don't underestimate the comfort of sitting quietly with someone. In a world addicted to noise and solutions, your silence may be the most loving act of all. 7. Giving without speaking, the power of quiet kindness. There is a story I often tell my patients, and perhaps you've lived something like it. A young boy growing up in a poor family once watched his mother give her last loaf of bread to a hungry stranger at the door. When he asked her why she would give away what little they had, she simply said, "Sometimes, kindness is quiet." But it never goes unnoticed. Years later, that boy, now a man, found himself in need. And it was a stranger's quiet act of generosity that saved him. A silent repayment of a debt his mother had never asked to be repaid. Kindness, when given silently, comes from a pure place. It is not offered for praise or recognition. It is given because something inside you says, "This is right." Older adults often tell me they don't know how to help anymore. They feel their words don't matter. But what they don't realize is that their silent acts, the meals prepared, the rides offered, the letters written, the prayers whispered carry more weight than any public gesture. In a noisy world, quiet kindness stands out. It lingers. It uplifts. It changes lives. Give when no one is watching. Help without expectation. Smile without needing a thank you. That is how legacies are built, not in loud declarations, but in soft, faithful service. Let your silence become your legacy. So now, I invite you to pause. Just for a moment. Not to look back in regret, but to look within with honesty and compassion. These 7 messages are not rules. They are reflections. Reminders that silence is not emptiness, it is presence. Not a lack, but a form of abundance. When we are young, we speak to prove ourselves. As we grow older, we become silent to preserve what matters. Silence helps us hear more, feel more, love more deeply. And in the end, it helps us leave behind something more powerful than words, a sense of peace. A reputation for wisdom. A legacy of calm strength and quiet love. If any part of today's message spoke to your heart, if it reminded you to be gentler with your words, to listen more freely, to offer kindness without a sound, then I invite you to carry that into your life starting today. Let your silence be the soil where understanding grows. Let it soften your anger, deepen your relationships, and strengthen your spirit. And if you found this message valuable, I warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts or simply say hello. And don't forget to watch the other videos we've created just for you, filled with gentle wisdom, health insights, and timeless stories for a life well lived. Thank you for being here. Wishing you peace, clarity, and all the quiet joys this day can bring. See you in the next video. Until then, be well.